all a chance to ask questions, but I want to just get started by asking a few questions at least. One is the obvious one that I'm sure you get asked at every Q&A, which is how you found Manon Clavel, who gives such an extraordinary performance.
Well, I looked for her for 2 years, because first I thought that I will play the role. I know, it was a very bad idea. But I wanted, so we looked for actresses in Belgium, France and Quebec, because I couldn't find her, and at one stage my producers thought that I didn't find an actress because I wanted to play the role and I didn't dare saying it. But I wanted her to be like around 40, and because I think I saw all the actresses that were 40 in Belgium and France. Like the casting director said that maybe I should meet Manon, but she was like 10 years younger. But and I thought she was too pretty too. But I'm fed up with seeing only pretty women on screen. And that in normal life she's really pretty, but for the film we yeah, so it's like, sorry, yeah, she didn't hate me for it. And my producer, who I was very close to, just died, and his name is Manon Clavel. And so I didn't want to meet Manon Clavel, but at one stage I thought, okay, maybe it's a sign from him. Maybe
there's no relation.
No, there's
no relation. When I was reading the credits.
So I thought maybe he's sending me a Clavel. And I saw Manon and I fell in love with her. I knew she was KIKA. Because she's very kind, very sensitive, very something very lightful, can I say that? Doesn't exist, but does it? Very luminous, French-speaking people.
Luminous we have to.
Yeah.
She's vital, she's still alive.
Yeah. And she has a great sense of humor too.
Yeah, I was going to say, she's also a very good sense of comic timing.
Yeah.
So, let's unpack something that one of her fellow colleagues says. A hooker is like a social worker but with sperm involved. It seems like a very telling observation. And it kind of points the way towards two questions I have for you. One is the research that went into learning more about how social workers work and how sex workers work. Because knowing you have a documentary background, I'm sure that some fair amount of research went into both of those aspects of her character.
Yeah, this sentence, I didn't write it. A friend of mine who is a sex worker said it to me. And yes, obviously, because usually I make documentaries, I had hours and hours of interviews with sex workers and social workers, and actually KIKA is like a mix, the character between me and a friend of mine who is a social worker and a sex worker. So he burnt out as a social worker and became only a sex worker, and then he burnt out as a sex worker and became only a social worker. And then he worked for the European Parliament. And he burnt out too. So
that's the training these days.
And so yes, and I did an internship too in BDSM because it's not something I knew, but I wanted to feel how it would be for me to get, to hit someone or to be hit, sorry. And yeah, but as you know, when I wrote KIKA, the script, I was directing Who Cares, who is a film about a hospital and about institutional violence, because you ask people to help the other ones, you ask people to care for the other ones, but you never give them the means to help them properly. So you put them in a situation that is completely impossible. That's why I wanted KIKA to be a social worker, because to me, there is like this weird thing that you don't pay people well to help the others, but you can be very well paid just to hit other people. So yeah, I found it funny.
Well, I mean, it's also the idea that, you know, she too is teetering on the precipice of financial destitution, right? That she herself could become one of her own clients, one of her own cases in the case of being a social worker, right? That she's, and what I find interesting is that she's protected or nurtured by her colleague there, who's a woman, and then learns the ropes, as it were. It's a bad pun, but learns the ropes in the BDSM community by women who kind of nurture her in a way, right? So there's a very nurturing aspect to their relationship with each other, in spite of what they do, of course.
Yeah, sure. And I wanted to show that too, because I think in many films, most of them are made by men, sorry about that, women are rivals, and I'm fed up with that too. You know, women I met, social workers or sex workers, they really help each other. Even, I mean, they are not angels, of course, and I wanted to show that in the film, because I thought, okay, if the film showed that being a sex worker is just like the best thing you can do, after the film, maybe, you know, everyone will become sex workers. We need other people to work in different areas.
One thing that obviously this has in common with Who Cares is the whole idea of role playing. Yeah. Learning how to be a better doctor or nurse or medical care practitioner through speaking, through the talking cure, as it were. And I think in some ways it's also for her a kind of learning how to play a role, of course, in both situations, not just as a sex worker, but also as a social worker, right? You know, one that's interesting to me is that she kind of often is transgressing. She crosses the traditional boundaries, right? So she's, as a social worker, she does more for the woman, for example. You know, she becomes moving their furniture to protect them. It's far beyond what is expected of her in her career and her job. And similarly as a sex worker, obviously she's presumably goes into it for financial need, but it's an emotional need as much as well, right? No? Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, that's to me it was very hard to speak about the film, because it's a film that you discover what is the real subject of the film only at the end, because it's a movie to me about denial, and I think unconsciously she becomes a dominatrix because she knows that she needs it. She needs to understand suffering and to put herself in a situation where she will suffer. She accepts to suffer. But consciously, she thinks it's only about money. So there are two layers in the film. I mean, there are more than two layers, but there are two main layers in the film. When I was writing, I thought, okay, that what you see and what she lives without understanding it first.
And I mean, and also it's, you think it's a film about denial, but of course it's also a film about vulnerability. You know, I mean, it's about, and who really is vulnerable, right? I mean, the moment in the bus stop is a pretty withering moment where she says, right, that, you know, do you know what kind of courage it takes to be willing to admit that need?
Yeah, we are speaking about nurturing and caring, and because I made that which not killed about rape, you know, and the one after about hospitals. I met a lot of people who try to to heal in a way, and who didn't find in institutions a place or people who could help them properly. And when this dominatrix told me that she had a lot of clients who came because they were raped, and they replayed it, they reenacted their rape in order to control them, to control. I thought it was great to see that we don't know that out of institutions, people are trying their best just to survive, and I wanted to show that, because sometimes you think that these people are freaks, that they are weird, but I think it takes a lot of courage just to try to figure out how to survive.
Well, the moment where the man who's experiencing so much pain that he needs to have control over his pain, physical pain.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very vulnerable moment, right? I mean, it's also an awareness, a self-awareness that a lot of us lack, right? To be able to know what to seek, to kind of comfort himself in his moment of need, right? He needs to at least feel like he can control his pain.
Yeah, and I think that's why some men too hated the film, because they, as a man and as a boy, it's very sad, but you are taught to be not to be fragile. Being fragile is not to be a man, and I think it's very sad and very dangerous too.
Yeah. Let's give you all a chance to ask some questions. There's a mic that will come.
Sorry. What you say, it takes a lot of courage as well. It should be like that.
To be vulnerable.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
Hello. Really love the film, so thank you for that. I was just curious. This was your first narrative film, and what your writing process was like, and what brought you to write versus make a documentary about some of these subjects.
So I made a middle-length fiction before. I reenacted a weekend with my daughter, but that was a catastrophe. If you think you're a bad mother, you can see this film and then you will feel very good. So yeah, I wrote alone for 3 years, but because I'm very, how to say, intense. It was like a series. I could have, and even KIKA, like the first cut was 3 hours and 50 minutes. We could have made 2 films. So I wrote a lot alone, too much, and then a script writer came and together we cut a lot. Making a documentary about it would have been very hard for many reasons. Like, clients are very hard to meet. I met a lot of sex workers, obviously social workers, but clients, none of them wanted to speak to me.
Not one?
No.
Wow.
I only know their stories because the dominatrixes I met told me their stories. And I think there are too many layers in this film to make a documentary. Because as I said, the character of KIKA is a mixture between me and this friend of mine. And there is no subject, it's not, she's like to be frank, I invited this story because at one point of my life, I was so broke, I was a single mom, that I started to think, okay, I sold everything I had, the coffee machine, all my lenses, all my cameras, and I thought, okay, the only thing I can sell now is my body. Am I able to sell sexual things? So I thought, okay, maybe beating up guys would be nice. Because I would very often want to do it, and if someone could pay me for it, whoa. So I started to look on the internet how to become a dominatrix, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then the fundings for That Which Does Not Kill arrived, and I didn't have to become a dominatrix. Only a filmmaker, sorry. But I wanted to, I started to think, okay, you know, in my family, becoming a sex worker for a girl, it's like the worst thing that can happen to you. So I thought, wow, thinking about it was such a huge thing for me that I thought, okay, I should write about it. Because when I was pregnant with my second child, I thought that if my boyfriend died, I would be alone, but with 2 kids. The only option I would have at this moment maybe would be to become a sex worker. And it was amazing because during the casting, like so many actresses told us that they were actually sex workers. Because, you know, when you see Cannes and Berlin and Venice, it's, you know, everybody has very expensive clothes that don't belong to them, that they have to give back on the day after. And, but in reality, they are very precarious. So, yeah. But I still don't really know how to answer this question. Why I think I wanted to be rich and famous. It did not work. That's it.
I do want to ask, while the mic is coming to you, about the script, that you don't insult the audience's intelligence because you insert all these illusions of time, which are really, I think, crucial to the film. The sudden affair, the sudden family, the sudden death, and, you know, the moments of black space that inform us that time has passed. We don't need to go through the usual kinds of things we see in cinema, the hand-wringing, the debates, the kind of worry. And I wondered if, when you said you had to cut those 3.5 hours, did you write that into the script and then remove it, or did you already elide over it when you wrote the script? Did you already know we're gonna dispense with all of that?
I knew I would cut, but we filmed a lot the story between David and KIKA. And because I didn't know what I would edit. And for example, when they split up, Paul and KIKA, we didn't film it. Because I knew I didn't need, I know, you know, everyone knows how it is to fall in love, everyone knows how it is to break up with someone you still love even if you don't love him anymore or her. So I don't need to explain to you what you already know. But they were so beautiful together that I couldn't help myself. So my producer told me it's too expensive, you have to cut. And I said, yes, I will. And with, and with the DOP and all the assistants and all the crew, we put it back. So it's very expensive, I will not do it anymore.
Wonderful film. I have 2 questions. And the first one, if you don't want to answer, is okay, but I'm curious visually what your inspirations were from other films. I noticed a lot of colors and a lot of red, and I wanted to know when you were preparing visually the mood board, what kind of films were coming to mind, if you did that, inspired by. And then the other question, if you don't have an answer for that, is you're a documentary filmmaker who went narrative, and I'm wondering what that transition was like, if you met any kind of resistance when pitching a narrative film as a documentary filmmaker, if any of that came up, and if not, what, how was that? How did you feel about moving over narrative?
So, about the image, we shot in a real, we call it discretion. It exists in English? Discretion hotel. But we only had the money to rent 1 floor. So the rest was staying, all the noises you hear
discretion hotels when you pay by the hour?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So some people come with someone they pay, and some people come with their colleagues. So, and it's just near the European Parliament. And I can tell you that before 9, and at lunchtime and after 6, it's crowded. So, anyway, I know where my taxis go. So, it was like that. It was red and blue. And I wanted to keep it that way because I come from documentary, and I think that I thought, because I don't think anymore, but that's when it's real, it's better. It's not true, but yeah. Sometimes when it's made, it looks more real than reality. That's what I learned while making the film. So my huge inspirations were, and you see, it's nothing like it. I didn't do it in wood board, I didn't have the time. I was too busy. And so the DOP was very independent. Because for example, I don't cut, how to say, découpage. I don't cut before, I don't imagine the shots before shooting. We arrive on the set and we say, okay, so now the light is here and you look good together, and I thought you would not, but it's better like that, so let's do it. I like improvisation and I like accidents. A bit too much maybe. But, so like, yeah, so it's, what's her name again? Fish tank. You know her.
No, it's
Andrea Arnold.
Andrea Arnold, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Andrea Arnold was really one of my biggest inspirations. There is nothing like Andrea Arnold's style in the film. And the other one, Oslo 31st of August. Joachim Trier, too, was, but nothing here. Thank you. No. And the second question was, sorry?
Just being a documentary filmmaker, but you kind of answered it.
Okay, so I left the space for many accidents, but apart from that, I think what was hard was that giving more money to a woman was very hard for some people. You know, being a documentary, they love it when it's a woman. Because, you know, like, they give you $10 and they say, oh, make a documentary. But then you're very good at it. Yeah, because, but when it comes to making fiction, and there is a bourgeois gaze, it is very, very annoying to me. You see, there are many things annoy me. But, you know, some people in the commissions, they were telling me that's not how it works. Like, she cannot become a sex worker. And I was like, I think yes, she can. And they were, no, she can't. She would, I don't know, she would clean the floor, she would do, she has a kid. She doesn't become a sex worker. And it made me crazy. So that's, the main difference was to have money.
Well, Jean Dielman has a kid too, for what it's worth. I don't think, we have another film coming up, so I think we have to end here, although I want to ask one final question because I'm always fascinated by names. Is there anything to KIKA?
No, I was pregnant when I wrote the script, and I thought that if the baby was a girl, I would call her KIKA. I had a son, but I had a film.
So KIKA it is.
I haven't seen Almodovar's film KIKA. I'm ashamed, but it's
That's
good.
okay.
Yes.
Yours stands on its own. Thank you all for coming.